I'm Mark Seifter.
And I'm Linda Zayas Palmer.
And this is Arcane Mark. Hi everyone, today we are interviewing Michael Sayre, the Pathfinder Society developer. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. It's certainly not like you said that before.
Feeling of deja vu to it, yeah.
Yes.
Well, let's get started with our first question we always ask, which is answer the more interesting of how you got started playing tabletop RPGs or how you got started playing Pathfinder.
So the more interesting is probably how I got started playing tabletop RPGs. I had always been very Dungeons and Dragons adjacent. I played, the video games like Baldur's Gate. I read a lot of the Forgotten Realms novels.
Oh, yeah.
But I was 18 and in the army before the first time I ever actually played a game of Dungeons and Dragons. And it was a fairly interesting game of Dungeons and Dragons because I was in basic training. We were not allowed to have like books, toys, dice, any of these things. And one night, it was quite late. So it was after lights out. We were all supposed to be sleeping. I had insomnia, couldn't sleep. There were a few other people who seemed to be having similar issues, including three guys who were sitting over in a corner with some lockers with some notepads and stuff. And so I kind of went over and was like, what's going on? And then they explained to me that they were playing Dungeons and Dragons. They were in the middle of recreating all of the rules that any of them could remember to characters and get a game going. And one of the guys had a very particular knack for making dice forms out of the cardboard backs of notebooks. So he had stenciled out like D8s, D6s, D12s, D10s, D4s, and everything out of the cardboard backs of notebooks, cut them all out, and then everyone was in the process of folding these and stuffing them with paper to try to get them to roll as true as possible.
So is that what they were doing when you noticed them?
Yeah, that was what they were in the early process of. And so then I sat down and joined them and started helping out in assembling dice and throwing out whatever rules I happened to remember, which were all, like I said, at this point drawn from the Dungeons and Dragons video games and never an actual pen and paper game.
Daco, did you know that for the video games?
I did. It was not helpful, and everyone was like, "No, that's not what's happening here." But then they got a game put together, and we played that through basic training with a bunch of weird characters and largely made up rules. And then when I got out of basic, I bought my first set of books. They were 3.0 books at that point in time. And started playing. Yeah, the army was where I really started learning how to play the game, and I played all over the world until I got out and kept playing. So.
All right, very cool.
So, but I noticed that you were thinking for a moment on which of your how you got started was more interesting. So you're welcome to share how you found out about Pathfinder and how you got started with that too, if you'd like.
Yeah, so my jump over to Pathfinder was kind of interesting because I had actually had a group where we had been playing 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons for a while. And then we were running some adventure, and one of the friends I was playing with made the comments that he liked how 3.5 had done some particular thing better. And I was like, well, I got all the 3.5 books, so maybe we can do that. And I started putting together an aquatic campaign. The whole thing was going to take place underwater, and I was trying to find different rules for it. And I stumbled across the third-party Pathfinder book, Cerulean Seas. And in doing a little research, I found out that Pathfinder, first edition Pathfinder, was largely the same thing as 3.5 with some updates and refinements and things like that. And So first I bought Cerulean Seas, and then when I got tired of trying to figure out where all of the adjustments needed to be made to convert between that and 3.5, we ended up just fully converting over to Pathfinder, and been playing that for a very long time. It
So
was really fun. It was funny to me that my first ever Pathfinder book was a third party book.
it was a third-party book, and it was also a book about aquatic rules, which that's one of those sets of rules that people think about. Oh gosh, aquatic rules.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So it's really impressive that you got an aquatic rule book that makes you think, you know what, this is a system I want to play.
It has all these aquatic rules in it.
It really was. I was like, oh man, this has rules for everything. Look, there's a rule for air bladders that you can use to change your depth. That was maybe just a little bit too much. That might have been the I was having too much fun with rules for the sake of rules moment. But it was still a great book.
Oh man.
Sometimes you just need rules for an air bladder that you can use if you want to change your buoyancy. But in Aquatic Adventures, when I wrote those, I wound up just saying, you can bring enough things with low buoyancy and like giant containers of air if you need to get yourself to neutral buoyancy if you're planning in advance. But just be careful, because if you then grab treasure, you're suddenly not at neutral buoyancy.
Well, that's one of the things that I really love about third-party products is that they can really delve into so many different niches and so explore so many different things.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing that I like too, and it's one of the things that I used to tell people all the time, and they'd be like, "Oh, well, why third-party products?" And I'd be like, "Because third-party products can get weird in a way that like a line that needs to appeal to a much broader audience sometimes just can't." I've written some weird stuff for third-party books that never have gotten published first party, but which is some of my favorite stuff, and which did pretty all right. Like, I remember writing the Zodiac class for Lost Spheres Studios, and when I pitched it to Kristen, I was like, so it's kind of like a fighter and a summoner with Incarnum thrown in, and also the whole thing is themed based on astrology and astrological signs. And Kristen was like, you have not steered me wrong up to this point, so let's see what you got.
So that's for Lost Spheres, you said?
Yes, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely true that third party can be a lot more agile and do some off the wall things, and even can write, especially in a game like Pathfinder First Edition, where the different like sort of power levels and games that people are playing are just very different from one another. A third party can write like directly to you, to what one group of players wants to be playing, whereas like a first party product needs to be able to appeal to the entire player base.
Yep.
Yeah, and you can have whole books that are dedicated to like this is an entire book that's about naval combat in ships at sea. Like,
yep.
A first party publisher is not going to be able to dedicate an entire book to naval combat at ships at sea, but you can just find what you're looking for.
And even when you have something like Aquatic Adventures, it's a pretty niche campaign setting. It wouldn't surprise me if like it also wasn't one of the more popular campaign settings, perhaps. I don't know the actual numbers on that, but the point is that it doesn't have a broad appeal, right? It's a kind of rule that you need sometimes, but when you don't need it, you're just not going to get that book. And even if you do need it, you might be willing to just sort of like do something. Except when you really need it, like you did, Mike, then you just you have to find some sort of rule set for it.
And they can be a really great way to, like, if you were looking for that for an aquatic campaign, to be like, you know what, this is something I can base a campaign around. This is something I can really sink my teeth into. So,
yeah. Well over a year's worth of book that I returned to many times. So.
Can you tell us about some of the other third-party projects that you've worked on that you're really proud of, or you're happy with how they turned out?
So I was just mentioning the Zodiac for Lost Spheres. That was one that I really enjoyed, and I actually did 2 expansions for that, Akashic Realms 1. Emperors and Einherjar, where I added in some kind of Eastern mythology and Norse mythology themed options, and brought in the first Zodiac, all of the constellations that I used were based kind of on the Western Zodiac, and so then I had to bring in the Eastern cosmology and bring in some other weird bits. And then in Akashic Realms Volume 2, The Quiet Lands, I'm not saying that the constellations were all inspired by Final Fantasy summons, but I'm also not saying
I mean,
that.
there are also Zodiac Final Fantasy summons in Tactics and some of the other ones too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm
Did you?
very aware of that
Yeah.
fact.
Did you ever consider making a class specifically to be able to defeat your Zodiac class? You could call it the Zodiac Killer.
Yeah,
Dun dun dun.
but maybe
He always
if
does
things
this. Our viewers know he always does this.
pop.
All right.
Yeah. Speaking of like niche products though, right? That might have a very specific market.
GMs who are frustrated with what their Zodiac is doing in combat. Or PCs frustrated by that Zodiac recurring NPC.
I look away for. It's like I turn my attention away for a few seconds to get the drive-through RPG link for Akashic Mysteries, and this is where you turn this up.
Yeah, there you go. But to turn it back to our usual starting questions, Mike. So, how did you get started working at Paizo?
So I had written a ton of third-party stuff when I got my job at Paizo, and had never actually written a single word for Paizo. I'd written for Owen at Rogue Genius Games, Greg at Amora Games, Drop Dead Studios, Dreamscarred Press, Legendary Games, and I knew a lot of people at Paizo, including you, fine friends of mine. But and I think I had talked to Owen when he was doing the player companions about writing something for him, and he had always been like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna write something. We're gonna get you in there, Mike." And then I never heard back from him. I got busy on some other projects, and actually, was it earlier this year or late last year when Owen left Paizo? He was clearing out his emails, and he goes, "Oh look, I have an email here from Michael Sayre from 2017 or 16, something like that, asking to be a companion." I probably should have answered that. I was like, "Yeah, Owen, maybe you should have."
Maybe that Michael Sayre person remembers that you never replied to his email, Owen.
Oh no.
I can't hold it against him though. I'm pretty sure he put in a good word for me when I did apply at Paizo and got called in to interview for the organized play position. So
yeah, well, I mean, you definitely had like the resume that was like, and I worked on, all these things.
Lots and lots, but not as much for Paizo, like you said, or for organized play. So how did you wind up as the Pathfinder Society developer? Tell us about that journey.
So before I came to work at Paizo, I actually did have some experience doing on a much smaller level, an organized play program, because I had been doing a program I called Third Party Thursdays for I think about almost 2 years at that point, where I would pick out modules and adventures and cool third-party books and kind of showcase them in runs at some of the local game stores over here in the area. And I had also played in Paizo's organized play, Pathfinder Society, off and on over the course of several years. One of the larger communities that we have now is over in the Spokane area, and Preston Hudson is the VC over there. And now he's got all these groups, but I remember starting to play when it was him, his son, me, my friend Cody, and like 3 guys who I'm pretty sure came with the venue. We were I think they were just kind of there at the table, and I'm not sure if they joined us or we joined them, but
They were part of the construction crew, and they just never left.
something, yeah.
There we
but
go.
but yeah, I think that was back in season 3 when that community was going, and I got to be part of that and play. And was playing an organized play there for a few years before coming over and then running third party Thursdays for a while. And when I originally applied for Paizo, it was not actually an organized play position. It was just a broader developer position. But then they closed that, reopened it as the organized, as a new organized play developer position. And Adam Daigle reached out to me and said, "Hey, are you still interested in that developer position if it's specific to organized play?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure I am. Why not? Let's do the thing." And then I got the interview and I came in, and apparently that went well because then I was
Yes.
working. uh,
I can attest to that interview going well.
Obviously, it went super badly, and
yeah. And then so originally I was supposed to bounce back and forth assisting on the Pathfinder and the Starfinder lines, like as needed. And I think maybe when I was hired, the intent was even that I was supposed to be like Thirsty's backup,
Yeah.
which then just didn't really happen. Instead, John and Thirsty, who always kind of have their heads together anyways, kind of took over Starfinder, and then Linda and I ended up doing the Pathfinder line. And of course, Linda was also doing the adventure card game line at the time.
Mhm.
So I just kind of naturally grew into the role of spearheading some of the season outlining and story outlining and everything for Pathfinder Society until here we are today, and my official title is Pathfinder Society Developer. So
Well,
Right.
it made it really natural and easy with that process too, because it with John stepping out of the department and needing to take on some other things, it was really natural to just be like, Mike's got this handled. Mike has a lot of great ideas. Mike, go do awesome stuff.
yeah, that didn't set the bar high or anything, but it seemed close.
All right, let's look at some of these other question categories. So, you worked on some of the Lost Omens books that are already out, like the Goblins in Goblin material in Lost Omens Character Guide, and some of the content in Lost Omens Gods and Magic. Would you say that like your design style in those and like the Goblin options is very similar to what you were talking about for third party, of sort of like the playful experimentation of these sort of more off the wall options?
I definitely, yeah. And I've got to say, it was exciting, to see how many of the really weird things that I turned over actually made it into the book, uh, and some of the ones that didn't make it in, I'm still sad about, but maybe one day
Some of the
turn
ones
in.
that didn't make it weren't even that weird. It was just like, oh, we've got to keep these weird ones.
Yeah. We gotta keep these weird ones, and there's only so much space in the book, so I guess we have to cut these more normal ones.
I did think it was weird. So like secret of the day, I guess, is that I did the goblins in the character guide, and there's the feat where you can light yourself on fire and then launch flaming unarmed attacks. It became spit at some point in the process. I wrote it as snot, and I still like wonder where that changed, because I didn't think snot was that big a deal, because we have the adventure card game card where the goblin is literally just sneezing a gross flaming napalm loogie.
Well, the adventure card game and the RPG do things a little differently, but it's pretty, like with most things, it's pretty likely that that happened during the editing phase, but it could have happened during development as well. I know it was not when I first saw the rules because I saw them from you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love these I love the things that happen and the stories that come from the process of checks and balances, which
There
are
you
off.
go.
Well, but if somebody's playing a goblin and they want to play it with their original, with the original
Original.
intent, and they want that.
Also,
Yeah,
maybe it's easier to have enough saliva to like spit every 2 seconds than it is to have enough snot to like snort out every 2 seconds for like over the course of a long period of time.
Things
I
this job
feel
makes you say.
I feel like if you're a snot-based goblin, you have a reasonable expectation of having a sufficient supply of
So
snot to
now we
do
need a
kind.
heritage that's snot based goblin that gives you not only a snot ability, but that says that when you use fire spit, it's actually snot.
I can't think of any name for that heritage that I'm not worried editing will shoot down.
The snot-nosed
Yeah, I was
goblin?
thinking snot nosed because they usually have a portmanteau of something like big belly.
Yeah, yeah, that'll work. All right, so this sounds like something I probably need to talk to Luis and Eleanor about.
Well, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I hear there's going to be a Pathfinder Society based World Guide, Lost Omens book coming out, so maybe there could be snot goblins in there. Who knows? All things are possible until they're not. I'm sure.
I
I'm sure you would have no idea what's going to be in there, as the Pathfinder Society developer.
Oh yeah, not a clue, but I'm sure it'll be all kinds of cool stuff.
So T for Goblins has a question for you, Mike. When is Pathfinder Society 2 going to get its own special event? It's not just 100 where it's a pre-gen, but is like a big special, I think they mean. Like an interactive.
I think we actually just put up the product page for 199 today.
I know the Gen Con events were due, and so something would have had to be announced for that.
Yeah. And so the answer to that question is definitely by Gen Con, potentially a little bit before Gen Con.
Yes.
Yeah, it really all depends on, like, whether gatherings of a certain number of people are legal at what periods of time.
Yes. But we certainly have PFS2 special event stuff in the works right now, and I'm really excited about how that's coming together.
Yeah, we've got a lot of wonderful authors and a lot of really cool ideas. And the upcoming specials, the upcoming special events that we have planned for Pathfinder Society are also really exciting because they really are kind of the culmination of the entire Pathfinder Society kind of family in a way that we probably won't ever see again. Because these really were things that Tanya, Linda, myself, James, and also John Compton, before he moved over to the Starfinder team, all had a hand in and all kind of touched in some way. And so this will kind of be the last moment in time, I think. I mean, barring collaborations that will almost certainly happen.
Collaborations across the office, how can that happen?
What?
He's so far away, he couldn't hear you planning.
Yep. But this will be kind of the last thing that officially we all know right now that we will all have kind of had a hand in together. And I think that's really cool. I'm really excited for that to go out into the public and be a thing people get to start experiencing.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
That makes sense. So let's see. When it comes to Pathfinder Society 2nd Edition, there's several new mechanics and things that have started showing up. Like, for example, there was a feat that showed up in one of the Chronicle sheets. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the sort of the new mechanics and the new ways that the organized play team and you are working to make things easier to run and also cooler and exciting for people when they find what's on their Chronicle sheet?
Yeah, absolutely. So, this first season of Pathfinder 2nd Edition Society Play has been a time of great experimentation and constant improvements. So on the player side, one of the things that I really wanted to do was I wanted to shrink down what goes on Chronicle sheets and really just zero in on really memorable things and not spend as much of that space on anything other than stuff that's just going to be exciting and make you remember the adventure when you go back and look at the Chronicle.
No
One
plus
of the
one bonus in jungles against flying snakes who worship Lysianassa.
Yeah, I really want to get less of that and more of stuff that is going to be really cool. Maybe has fewer checkboxes. We did still have some checkbox things this season, and I think to a certain extent, there will always be a place for those. But the second quest that we put out, Unforgiving Flame, had really kind of a cool organic journey where I really wanted a fun martial arts adventure. Leo Glass from our editing department, who is a really awesome dude, was open to the idea of writing it and had some great contributions. And really early on in the process, I had the idea that wouldn't it be fun if there were mechanics that were specifically for Pathfinder Society characters? Cool stuff that maybe was even rare, was almost certainly uncommon, if not rare. That would help shape your character and your adventure. And it wasn't really as hard a sell as I thought it would be because that was already a direction Paizo was moving into. If you look at, any of the adventure paths that have gone out so far, they all have really, really cool loot. The structure of the new system makes it a lot easier to pick up kind of whatever loot you find. You're a lot less likely to have, 10 different feats that have all locked you into one weapon. So it's a lot easier to be like, oh, cool, Rymax the Destroyer is no longer the best weapon I have. I want to go play with Triple Glacial Piercer the Spear, I guess. I should have picked a word
There you go.
if I wanted to make it through that. But the ability to jump over to cool stuff. And I was like, that's really what society play should be. And that's really what boons on Chronicles were always supposed to be about anyways, was having your character's mechanics weave directly into the story of your character. So we put the Reign of Embers stance into that scenario
Spoilers.
as a spoilers. Oh God, my bad.
It's okay. It's been out for a few months.
Yeah.
Matter in direction. I was gonna say, yeah, it's been
Whatever.
a while, right?
I don't care. Hopefully our viewers don't either. By the time that this is up on YouTube, I'm sure that people will have become grandmasters of their own Reign of Embers style and own a dojo. So.
Oh come on! I've never thought things in YouTube. When you're starting there, I thought you were gonna say everybody's gonna have grandchildren or whatever.
No, I was just saying they'd own a dojo in character. That's not that bad. Maybe their grandchildren own the dojo.
Sigh. Alright, well, T for Goblins here says that they really like the boon on 111. Well, if you like things from 111, then, just in general, then Mike is the one to talk to, because Mike is the author of Flames of Rebellion.
That's right.
I am, yeah, and that was a really fun boon, which I'm going to tiptoe around in as non-spoilery a way as I can now that I've already let my one accidental spoiler of the night slip. But that boon was a little bit inspired by the sanctioning I had done for Council of Thieves, where that had a very particular set of chronicle boons that were really different than anything I think I'd seen on any chronicle sheets up to that point. And it had opened my mind to the idea that boons can be much more tangible and maybe even things that you can come back and build on later in interesting ways that continue to have your chronicle sheets playing into your character's story in really significant ways. So
yeah, I really, really like the things that you've done with boons and all the new ideas you've had for them. I mean, there's a reason why, once you started doing sanctioning, it was not only are you way faster than me at this, but you also come up with all these amazing ideas. So, Mike, you just want to do all the sanctioning now, because
Isn't that kind of what's happening anyways?
Yeah, I know. I'm talking about in the past.
That's the back in time Linda.
Back in time, Linda was like, Mike, you want to do this stuff now, and then.
And then you apparently said yes without knowing, because now you think she's offering it to you now.
No. You already.
And I guess it's safe to say that whoever your design lead was okay with having these feats and things in the back of the scenarios too.
He certainly seems to be, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
We've been coordinating with our design lead on the design team about various things that we want to put into our scenarios.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been really cool this season to have a stronger relationship with the design team and to get to work with a cool design lead who can give us some direction and double check the fun, nifty, original mechanics that are going out on chronicle sheets and stuff like that.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It makes it does make it but for real though, it does make it a lot more comfortable to have that sort of system because this is still a young game system, to know that when we're coloring outside the lines, we're not also breaking down the structure at the same time.
Now we just need like Leo to come in also to this, and then we'll have all four of the people who were responsible for like any component of that quest, so we could spoil it as thoroughly as possible.
Yes.
At some point,
Yeah,
at some point, I think we really need to do that, though, in a podcast or stream somewhere, is just take an adventure that we know is seen lots of play and isn't a repeatable, so it's not going to be an active rotation, and then just, like, tear it apart and talk about the process, talk about why we did things, why they're done a certain way, what kind of things we learned from it, how it's pushed things forward. I think that would be
volumes all had that on a Pathfinder Friday.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, so I could definitely see that for, like, let's say an interactive special or something that's like a big one where you're just like, okay, so let's talk to Brian Duckwitz about the finale of the Seeds of Gallowspire with Linda.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Or something like that. Is like, what was it like to write the big interactive finale for BFS 1 or things like that?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like a cool idea.
What is it like to have all this stuff thrown at you and be like, here's your 8-page outline that describes all the things that we want this scenario to achieve.
All right. So, let's see. We've name dropped several freelancers today, but Mike, you're one of the first people we were interviewing who one of your, like, maybe your number 2 thing that you wanted to talk about actually was other people and not just yourself, because you wanted to talk about some of the upcoming brand new freelancers that you've worked with that people might not know about yet, and potentially some of those announced upcoming scenarios. So what can you tell us about that? I'm real curious too, because as a designer, I'm always interested in those new freelancers when they are available.
Yeah, we have really been pushing out the field, broadening it as much as we can with the people that we're bringing in to write scenarios and quests and adventures for us. You know, we're looking for professionals from all over the industry, from beyond the industry, in, you know, kind of concurrent fields and stuff like that. And it's been really, really cool. Some of the new quest authors we brought in, I'm real excited about. And if I don't say your name as one of these quest authors, it doesn't mean I'm not excited about you too. There's a lot of you. But Quinn Murphy and Alex Bustian were brand new authors to the Pathfinder Society world, and they brought some really cool ideas in their quest. Dustin Knight, who's Kitsune Warlock on the forums, came right from our community and gave me one of the coolest quests I've ever seen, which is a little self-congratulatory because I outlined it, but he did awesome.
How could he have written the coolest quest I've ever seen when I asked him to?
I mean...
Dustin's watching right now and just sent a very cheerful emoji to respond.
It was a happy robot face.
Yes.
Well, good. Yeah.
Or he's laughing at your self-congratulation. Unclear.
But legitimately, it was done really well, and was exactly what I had asked for and hoped for. And sometimes there is a little space between those two things, and in this instance, there was not. So that was great. James Case, our new Pathfinder Society, or our new organized play developer, also wrote a really cool new quest, and it was his first contribution as an author, it was his first contribution. I think he had edited at least a few scenarios at that point, and had definitely made other contributions just in the office to the things that we were doing.
Spreadsheets.
Yes, but he did Pub Crawl, which both had a lot of alliteration, which was great. Involved a bar fight. Not much of a spoiler. I think that's on the product page.
It definitely is on the product page.
Oh, Owen is also here too, and said that that James Case edited a few scenarios. So he was there when you called him out for not answering your email, Mike. Or maybe he joined later and now he knows about it thanks to me.
Risky wants to know how many Leshy scenarios I've had you outline.
Okay, so in Linda's defense, Linda has never once asked me to outline a Leshy scenario. However, she has gotten bright-eyed when I turned around and asked her a question I knew she would say yes to, which was, what if this scenario had a whole bunch of Leshies in it?
Yes.
Seen her play The Blooming Catastrophe yet? Maybe do that.
Yes. I'll take this one. T for Goblin. ACP, we're still working through getting that system. We don't have a firm date for achievement points just yet. Process continues to move forward, but as you may have seen on Paizo.com with customer service making their announcements, there's a fair number of us in work from home situations right now.
Or social distancing.
Social distancing, yes. So some things are a little slowed down on that front, but we're still working from our home offices to get things rolling, and that's why we get to have Mike on here today.
Yeah,
Mike
we would never have had him
Mike
otherwise.
has the commute of ages, so him actually being able to be home in time for one of these episodes was pretty much a non-starter. So then when we were at home, I was thinking, hey, we could actually get Mike, I think.
Yep. Mike could probably get to a rainforest much faster than he could actually get to the office.
Yes. That is true, right? You're closer.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's why I said much faster.
Yes.
That's how far away he is.
Yep.
Numbat is asking where you're commuting from.
So I am across the Puget Sound from Seattle. So when I commute in, if I am using public transit, which I generally don't do anymore, just because Seattle's had a lot of various things affecting that schedule, it involves a 15-minute bus ride, followed by a 50-minute ferry ride, followed by a 2-block walk, followed by about an hour and 10-minute bus ride.
Didn't John and Thirsty try to do that to come say hi to you and then be like, never again? And also how?
Yeah, they did. They thought it would be real funny, like, oh, hey, let's go to Bremerton, where Mike lives, and wouldn't that be a lark? And then drove all the way out here and were like, Mike does this every day? What is wrong with Mike? And then apparently almost got Silent Hilled into the subway here, which is their story. So at some point, if you're ever talking to John or Thirsty or Diego, you will have to ask them about the subway in Bremerton and how that works.
Oh, right, Diego. How could I forget that was all three of them?
Because you were sure that it wasn't Diego's idea.
It just sounded like something Diego would have enough wisdom not to do.
Yeah, but Thirsty has enough charisma to draw
there you go.
the group into unwise decisions.
Yeah, that's at least that's a 50-50 opposed check there. That can go either way.
There you go. Okay, sorry, we interrupted you. Did you have any other freelancers that you wanted to talk about there with the upcoming scenarios?
Um, Goodness gracious, I probably did. Oh, Dennis Muldoon wrote our quest, A Curious Claim, which is uh, an investigation into possible insurance fraud set in Druma. And that was really amazing. I actually felt like I came away having learned some things from working with him on that, because I said Dennis Muldoon, right? Did I say his
Yes,
name
you
right?
Yes.
said it right.
Okay. I, I had Dustin in my head from earlier, and I was really worried I missed.
No, you said it right.
There's another thing that can sometimes get confusing, which is that there's another freelancer that is named Dennis Baker.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yes.
But it was a really cool opportunity to work with him, because he came from our volunteer groups, and had done a lot of GMing. And so he had a lot of direct personal insights into what it was like running quests at his venue, which ones ran long, which ones finished on time, which ones people seem to be having the most fun with, and what kind of things he thought would be good ways to kind of optimize that process. And so that was an opportunity where I really, as a developer, kind of put on my listening hat instead of my telling hat for a lot of that interaction, because I thought that experience that he had and those insights that he had were really valuable. And I did end up, like I said, taking and learning from those and passing them on to the team. And I think that's been one of the really cool things is in finding these really diverse groups of volunteers. We pulled them from the third party groups. We pulled them from broader communities. We pulled them from our volunteer base, and everybody has their own kind of unique perspective on things. Speaking of the third party group, we've got scenarios that are coming out. Is it this month? Oh no, next month. Where we've got a two-parter by Alex Agunas and Thilo Graff.
That is this month.
It is this month.
Yes.
Okay.
it's March.
Yes, it's March. I know time feels a little fluffy, but yes.
Yes, that is part of the season meta plot, has some really cool hooks. People who have got their GMGs and have been flipping through them thinking like, oh, this thing looks cool and this thing looks cool. There's a chance that some of those things might show up in these things. So that might hopefully be exciting for
There's
you.
a chance that we may hypothetically have talked to our design lead to make sure that all of those things were implemented correctly, because we're excited to use things as they are rather than coming up with variants.
Very, very much so. That is a thing about the new edition of Pathfinder that I'm really excited about, even though it sounds boring when you say it, which is consistency.
Well, no, but anyone who's watching this, who's an organized player, if I've read anything online accurately, the inconsistency of subsystems, or when it goes into another weird part of the game, that like this time the drinking contest was a con check and not a fortitude save, so my low con character with a high fort save bonus loses. Like that really frustrates the organized play community.
What about fires?
Yeah,
rules for putting out
turned
fire.
people against subsystems that they otherwise sort of don't complain about, the ones that are more consistent in that they're just sort of do things the way org play has normally done it in Pathfinder Society 1, where it's just like, get a certain number of these things for your secondary success. That's fine, right? Because it's consistent. So I think that even if they don't know it, a lot of people actually really, really like having that consistency straight out from 1.0.0, where you guys were already using victory points from the GMG right from the beginning. And so there's, even though the GMG was not even close to out yet, I think that there's a big benefit from that, and that from what I've seen, which has been less than when I was a venture lieutenant and saw it all, but from what I've seen, people have been embracing. Saw it all. But people have been embracing the use of subsystems and victory points now that they're consistent in a way that they didn't before, when it was like, oh, what do we have to learn now? Wait, it's so different. Why? How does this even work? So we'll see if that's true.
I think that's true. That matches my experience at least as well, where I've seen a lot fewer of the kind of complaints about, oh man, another point-based system. And really kind of to the contrary, the input that I've been seeing is that people are actually a lot more excited about how we've had really a lot of adventures where combat is maybe not the final decider of the adventure one way or another. It's doing these point based kind of systems that are baked into some really cool challenge, like the race in Tarnbreaker's Trail, which is essentially fantasy Iditarod across the land of the Linorm Kings. Or some of these other systems that we've had where we've done similar things with the points and the tracking, where it seems to naturally flow into the system. And because if people have done one of these, they know how to do the next one. I really think you're right that they have been more receptive and have really just been enjoying them more, or at least that seems to be the communications as far as I've seen. Yeah.
Well, I think players, especially in organized play, they like to feel like they understand what's going on based on what they've done before, and just like that they have an experience that fits with what they found in the past, whether that's from a continuity of storylines and characters or just mechanically. And so I think that this victory point system is a better fit for organized play than just say throwing in the latest Pathfinder Society one subsystem that, hey, we designed. I'm not ragging on them; they were cool, but that were very different, and so people had to get used to them in that adventure.
Yeah.
All right, so what about some? We talked about some of the mechanics, but sort of story-wise, what are some of your favorite characters that have sort of started popping up in the more recent seasons of Pathfinder Society, without going into too many spoilers about ones that are like, oh, this one was secretly a spy or something like that.
So back in season 10, we introduced a group of goblins down in Katapesh, and one of these goblins was Zig, who was this earnest little like 3-year-old goblin who wanted nothing in life so much as to be a pathfinder. And in the first adventure he appears in, he's got like this scrunched up little face, his little goblin chin, like such as goblins have chins, is all like, and he's balancing this giant tray of drinks on his head because he's working as basically like a busboy at a Pathfinder party. And we recently revisited that character in 114 Lions of Katapesh, and we got new art for Zig. And remember, goblins reach full adulthood by the time they're 5 years old, right? And Zig was like 3 a year and a half ago, so we give him 6 months, right? We assume he was like 3.5. So Zig is a brand new, fully minted goblin adult, and we got new art for him, and it went up in the blog, and it is like the best thing I've ever seen. He's got these maleficent cheekbones and this heroic smile, and he's wearing this explorer's jacket with the collar popped and a dagger on one hip and a pistol on the other. And I'm just so proud of his growth. To see it.
Our little goblin's so grown up.
He can be friends with Fumbus.
Yes, he can.
Yeah, well, if the two of them walked into like a crowded room full of non-Pathfinders, I'm not sure which one would get what reaction, because Fumbus is a classic goblin, right? He's got one shoe hanging open. I don't think he has another shoe on. He's got a kid with almost certainly gunpowder strapped to his back, along with a bunch of poorly stoppered explosives. And then Zig is like on the opposite end of the spectrum, where he's picked up all of these mannerisms from hanging out with explorers during his formative years in a somewhat different way than Fumbus did. I'd GM that game, though, with both of those characters in there, 100%.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's going to happen somewhere when someone plays
play
Fumbus in Lions of Katapesh.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's been really cool. I I already spoiled uh an adventure earlier in Unforgiving Flame, and I don't really want to do that, or Unforgiving Fire, and I don't really want to spoil it too much. But there is an NPC from that adventure who, for reasons we did not initially anticipate, people just really, really took a liking to. And it started in a playtest game where Leo, after running a playtest for some people, came back and was like, "Hey, Mike, this character was so interesting to the party that this happened. Do you mind if I make a few adjustments to the adventure in case other people have the same reaction?" And I was like, not only do I not mind it, let's put it in the reporting data,
Yeah.
right? And people really liked this character, and a reaction that we initially did not expect to get from the players is actually the most common reaction players have to that NPC.
Mm-hmm.
And so in very short order, you will be seeing that NPC again in a big way, which is something I am really excited about and looking forward to. And for people who that's not a spoiler, yes, that's who I'm talking about. That is exactly who I'm talking about.
Nice.
Now you know. It's that
You
one.
That one, yeah. But we really do like to look at to that reporting data to see how are people responding. What are people deciding in these points where there is that clear choice that we can easily write
Have a
down
living
this thing and that
campaign.
thing. Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It is 100% a living campaign. And I think one of the cool things about it is that it is a living campaign that touches the canon. There are things that are set in the canon of our game. NPCs who are there, NPCs who aren't there, gods who are no longer imprisoned,
Yes.
things that happened in Pathfinder Society, and so people who have been playing our game have been directly shaping our game. They have been making decisions and telling us who lives and who dies, who's freed, who's in power, who's kicked out of power, for probably longer than a lot of people realize. But I always get excited about that. And I always like when people notice that, when they're like, "Oh, this is that person who I did this for. And now she's here." I mean, one of our faction leaders is the result of that now. Veleus Durant
Yeah.
is the culmination of a long story, and her fate was something that was decided by many, many, many Pathfinder Society players who participated in her story.
Yeah, and
Uh,
the fact that she was such a popular character throughout a variety of adventures led to having the adventure on the shores of heaven where it actually came down to checkbox A, B, or C type. I don't remember if there was specifically A, B, or C, or B, C, or D, or whatever, but there were 3 checkboxes on there that corresponded specifically to whichever of these 3 boxes has the most reporting data. That determines what happens to Valace from here.
Dun dun
Yep.
dun.
And
Was that potentially kind of scary because one of them was a really bad option and the other ones were both good, but depending on what the PCs did, so that, like, if, say, 7 or however it adds up, maybe like 55 to 60% of people got the good option but split, then the bad option would have the most.
Well, I mean, the bad option in that case more represented the PCs like completely flubbing the scenario, which is something that we don't expect that often. Whereas the other 2 options, we thought it was most likely that either the like maximum success or the like standard success would get the most, and the maximum success did. So that was the decision point, whether Valace ended up being real on the failure. Just it didn't work, and a lot of things really got messed up. Or Valace was a tiefling, or Valace was an Aasimar.
Well, I mean, you're right. I'm sure people don't get the minimum, like the big failure that often. But what would you do if there was a situation where it was almost the kind of the lesser success, but because one more group got a big success, that turned the whole thing into a failure?
Yeah, in that case, we'd probably we'd have to look at it on a case-by-case basis, right? But in that case, if it was like, oh, too many super successes have messed it up, then we'd probably go with the middle option in that case. But we also usually are more likely to have an A or B, or like things that are more different rather than like one of three things for this one exact.
And let's be honest, things are stacked in favor of the players.
I mean, they are, right? we want players to be successful. We want people to have a good time, and we just want there to be some challenge along the way.
All right. So let's see. Mike, we were talking before about your third-party products for Pathfinder First Edition. Have you been working on any third-party products for Second Edition, or has it been all First Edition?
I actually have been working on some stuff for Second Edition. Based on my last conversation with Greg at Amora Games, I think my first Pathfinder Second Edition third-party class, which is a conversion / reimagining of one of my first, if not my first, Pathfinder First Edition classes, the Battle Lord, should be going up for sale tomorrow on Drive-Thru RPG, and probably a few days after that on Paizo. So I am really excited for that. I actually, the last thing I did before answering your guys' video call to start doing this was double check my email to see if the Drive-Thru RPG coupon had shown up yet.
So what's the name of that product if people want to check it out when it comes out?
I believe it is going to just be the Battle Lord, unless Greg changed it in the last minute and I haven't found out about that yet, in which case maybe I'll visit your Discord to let people know.
Our Discord, invite.gg/arcanemark.
That's right. So it doesn't have the Liber and Fluxus or whatever it was from Amora in front of it this time, because it's just more all about the Battle Lord.
Correct. Yeah, it's not part of a big conglomeration product like Liber and Fluxus was back in the day, which Linda and I both worked on. And did you work on that as well, Mark, or were you not part of that one?
I helped from the background, but I'm not credited.
Yeah. Yeah, I had mixed feelings about the name Battle Lord because I felt like it was a little just too raw. Yeah, I like a certain amount of subtlety in my naming convention. And there is some subtlety in the name Battle Lord.
It's like Warlord, but you didn't want it to be Warlord, so it's Battle Lord.
Right.
Yeah, but you know what? Sometimes your class can have anime hair, and that's okay.
It's totally okay. Also, since it was Battle Lord and the first two letters were BA, it ended up being the very first class at the front of the book, which was pretty sweet.
A lot.
Speaking of at the front of the book, Owen says the Battle Lord can hang out with the Blood Rager, though.
In terms of names.
He
also wants to remind you were a developer for the Giant Bloodlines.
Yes, that is a very good reminder. Rogue Genius Games just released Giant Bloodlines, written by Andrew Stuckel for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and I was the dev on that. And speaking of people, so I tell Stack all the time that if he would like me to recommend him to other developers, I will, because he is one of my favorite people to work with. We've been working on projects together since Akashic Mysteries. I was the lead designer on that book for Dream Scarred Press, and I wrote probably 90% of it, but there were some cool contributions, and Stack did a swarm archetype for that. And I had a really good time working with him, and I was really impressed by the work he did. And we've worked on a whole bunch of things together since, including Spheres of Might by Drop Dead Studios, which we got an Emmy nomination for, so that was pretty cool.
I just linked the Drive-Thru RPG search page for Michael Sayre, which is a good place to look at things that Mike has worked on. You'll see a lot of very highly rated products on that list.
Thank you.
That's true. They all seem to have 5 stars or 4.5 stars, except the Vizier.
Yeah, well, he ended up in books that did get 5 stars.
There you go, then.
Well,
he was behind the scenes making those books get into the higher stars.
Like they do. But yeah, so that's been really exciting. I expect Stack will probably do some more things for Rogue Genius Games that I will also have been the developer on. So look forward to the things that he puts out. I'm a fan of them,
Owen has
certainly.
confirmed that the existence of these things.
Oh, good.
But not what they are. Not their identities. People will still have to find out what Owen just received in his inbox. And based on what we've seen for the interview so far, it could be anything.
It could be anything, but it's probably going to be a lot of fun, whatever it is.
Yeah. I was talking to Adam from Drop Dead Studios earlier. I had done another first edition class for him that was pretty cool and fun, the Luchador. And some people may even know my Leshador Seed,
Yes.
who is one of the main characters in Luis Loza's Monday night Return of the Rune Lords adventure. And I can officially confirm that in the near future there will be a Pathfinder Second Edition version of the Luchador that has been fully kind of reworked. I definitely took a lot of inspiration and tried to bring all of the best parts of the PF1 Luchador over, but I think Pathfinder Second Edition is such a it is a game that feels the same, but the structure is so different that oftentimes the way to do things is not to just try and do direct conversions. It's try to take inspiration from the Pathfinder First Edition things and look at what the best way to bring them into Second Edition is. And so that's what I did with the Luchador as well. Is I tried to keep all of the coolest things that people were familiar with, but put them in a framework that is appropriate and feels really good in Pathfinder Second Edition. And I don't know. People will have to let me know if they think I succeeded or not on that, because obviously I'm my own biggest fan first. Everything I write, I generally write because I want to play with that thing, or someone in my home group or the work group wants to play with that thing, and that's why I write it.
But I mean, that's a really good source of inspiration because you know that it's something that people think is awesome before you even put key to pen to paper or key to keyboard, I guess.
And straight out of Owen's inbox and into chat, Primal Bloodlines is the unannounced, but now announced secret thing that is the Mike/Stack combination piece. Also, talking about that Lashy Luchador reminded me that people on one of our previous shows where I think Andrew White, when we were interviewing him, was that right? He was the one talking about your Shuni clown that's in Extinction Curse, and we were supposed to say you should have named him Pugliacci. How could you not name him Pugliacci?
Okay, so here's the thing, and there's a very specific reason why I didn't, and it's that I took the Bloodhound heritage, and in my head, he's only kind of pugly.
I see.
But he's got the Bloodhound nose and ears. So, yes, my clown cloistered cleric of Caden Kalian, who is named Mr. Rufflesworth.
I like that you not only remembered that he asked that question, but you waited until Mike was on this interview to ask him that.
Well, we kept forgetting to ask it at work because Andrew was like, "You should ask Mike why he didn't name it Pugliacci," and also everyone on the interview with Andrew also said that we should. So
now we have.
Somehow we waited and ambushed you with these hard-hitting questions like, "Why not Pugliacci?"
Yeah, it was a consideration, but it just didn't feel right the way Rufflesworth felt right.
So, do you have certain themes or types of characters that you often like to play?
So that's kind of in an evolving stage at this moment in time. But I would say generally yes. Certainly when the majority of my games were still happening in Pathfinder First Edition, I had a really specific type of character that I liked. Part of that came from the fact that I was playing very voraciously and constantly for years. And so I liked stuff that was weird. And things that talked to concepts that were not so much core ideas anymore. And I really liked anybody who could mix together a good combination of both magical and martial power. Like I was talking about the Zodiac and how it's a class that is both a fighter and a summoner. And that's got two paths built into it. One of them is I'm just a magical fighter who incarnamizes all of my gear and stuff, right? And all of my gear is stars, almost like a Saint Seiya kind of thing. And then that exact same class also has I'm a pet mancer who, summons champions to fight for me and uses a bunch of support effects. I really like characters who can buff and are good team players, and I really like characters who have kind of a broad toolbox. Second edition has really brought me back to casters again, in particular. I think prior to second edition dropping, it had been a very long time since I played a pure caster who didn't have some kind of gimmickry mixed in there. And I suppose my clown cloistered cleric of Caden Kalian is still not exactly an archetypical cleric.
It has a shtick at the very least.
Yeah.
It's a shtick, yeah, but definitely it's the most fun I've had playing a cleric in a very long time. And I don't think he's not really doing anything weird. He makes a lot of acrobatics checks because he's a clown, right? And a shoonie. So he's got all of these little, like, he sniffs things. He spends a lot of time close to the dirt. But
I think you've got your eclectic character quotient filled there at the very least.
But that's an eclectic sort of personality.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I'm playing a shoonie clown and a leshy luchador right now. I guess that kind of tells you where I'm at.
So it looks like folks found the art for Zig on the blog, and Tifa Goblin says that Zig would make an ideal swashbuckler.
Yeah, I think in my head there are some swashbuckler elements to Zig, and that's probably, if he is any class, what he is. But any particular class, but definitely I might have even used the word swashbuckler in that art order because I wanted him to have some charisma and panache.
There you go.
Well, I mean, that's one of the things, though. If Zig is a really popular character, then it's a lot more likely that we'll be seeing more of Zig in another scenario in the future.
This is true.
Look at that art. I could see Zig being like, I am not left-handed, or some kind of swashbucklery thing.
Oh,
right?
Totally.
Although with the pistol and the dagger, the "I am not left-handed" is probably what he says right before he Indiana Jones shoots you.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
After you do the, like, he just shoots you.
Exactly.
Totally.
Yeah.
I once had a player who described that scene from Indiana Jones, and then he said, I want to be the guy who got shot. And that was how Kasir the fighter, who was a Pathfinder Society archaeologist who was like a Kelishite ethnicity from Osirian, but like really liked Osirian history, even though everyone hated him because of how the Kadiran sort of occupation destroyed the history. Got born from like that scene, being the guy with the dazzling displays with the kukris.
Yep.
That seems, that's an exciting origin story.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I want to be that guy from that movie
Who got shot.
But I mean, inspiration can come from all sorts of places.
Yep.
Well, and in all fairness, right up until he got shot, that guy was the coolest thing that happened in the movie up to that point.
That's
very true.
So I think we've gone through the list of questions topics that you specifically wanted to talk about that you sent us. And let's see, were there other things that you wanted to chat about? I have a couple.
Also, I'll ask chat if there's anything that you wanted to chat about while Mike tells us what he wants to chat about.
Oh goodness. What else is on my mind? Do you remember? Did you ever play the old Landgrisser video games? They're like Fire Emblem, Shining Force style tactical RPGs where it uses grid-based combat with different units who have different stat spreads and abilities to walk across different environments. That kind of classic thing.
I've not
Not
played
that particular one,
Langrisser.
but
I've
I
played
played
a
similar
lot of
types
games
of
like
games.
it, but
I love strategy RPGs. I love those Shining Force and Fire Emblem style games, and I played Langrisser way back in the day, and Langrisser 1 and 2 both came out on the Switch. Um, and so when I have reached the point in the day where it is in my best interests not to try writing, editing, or developing something anymore,
Hmm.
and actually like relax and do something different, I have been playing those, and it has been amazing nostalgia. And also has put me perilously close to not getting to sleep on time
uh-oh.
twice in a row. Because
That's always the
oh,
mark of a good game when you're playing that game with yourself where you're like, I can just play a little longer, and then suddenly it's
Owen
well,
asks, "Is there any chance you can convince Paizo to let you work from home 1 to 2 days a week after this is over if you prove that you can get work done that way to save you a part-time job worth of commute time each week?" That's what Owen said, but he's not really expecting an answer.
yeah. You might be surprised.
hmm
Will be my answer to that.
yes. so 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 yeah, I was gonna ask you because I know we talked about how you got to Paizo specifically, but I guess one thing that we didn't talk about is how you got into from playing RPGs to writing for them. So how did you get
Okay,
started with that?
so about 5, 6 years ago now. Um, I was working for Umpqua Bank. I had been working for a bank called Sterling Bank as a treasury management agent, and then they were bought by Umpqua. And I worked for Umpqua for about a year exactly a year, because I moved out here to the Seattle area for that job when they decided that they had too many treasury management agents, and so they were getting rid of the most junior member of the Sterling acquisitions team, which was me. So I was laid off, but I had fortunately been in the position of having worked myself up to the point where they offered me a severance package in exchange for agreeing to not work for any other banks for a while.
Mm-hmm.
As I was getting married, literally the next month, it seemed like a really good deal, but it meant that Morgan and I went, got married, enjoyed our honeymoon, came back, had some time to enjoy together, and then she had to go back to work, and I still had a couple months where I was not allowed to go do the thing that I had been doing for the last several years. So I had some homebrew stuff, and I started following some play tests online as ways to fill the time. And in seeing how different people did play tests and what they were working on, I started feeling like maybe I should do some things. And then I was having a conversation with my friend Steve one evening about how I thought it was very strange that nobody had a current D20 based system with mechs and technology at that moment in time. And Steve was like, "Well, Mike, you could just write that." And I was like, "You know what? You're right. So I'm going to give it a try." And I did write that, and I pitched it to Dream Scarred Press, and they were kind of interested, but didn't want it at that point in time. But it led into some other conversations about my interest in Incarnum and the fact that I had a whole bunch of Incarnum homebrew and Pathfinder conversions, and they said, well, if you are like really into Incarnum and the work that you could do on that is similar to the quality that you did on this pitch, then we'd really like to see what you can do. I ended up writing Akashic Mysteries, and then that did reasonably well and led into a bunch of other things. And at some point, I was past the window where I could have gone back and started working in banking. And I talked to Morgan about it, and she was like, you've been doing pretty good at this. You haven't had too much trouble finding contracts and work and keeping on top of this. And frankly, I've enjoyed your company a lot more since you stopped working in banking. And I was like, well, then maybe I'll just do this and see how it goes.
And it seems like it's treated you pretty well.
I mean, so far, right?
Yeah.
So Owen asked what your first credit was for an RPG book.
So it is really tight, and I think Owen is actually the publisher who gets that honor with the Genius Guide to Bravery Feats, which is a gold seller on DriveThruRPG, by the way. Was this 6 years ago?
It's 2014. When Owen first asked it in the chat and you started this story, I guessed Bravery Feats was the answer. And then was like, let's see what Mike says.
And he pulled it up. And
then I pulled it up just to make sure that, I was like, I'm pretty sure this was significantly before.
Yeah, the Genius Guide to Bravery Feats.
That it was significantly before the Akashic stuff came out, like by a few years. And it was 2014.
Yeah, I had been working on the Vizier at that point, I think, or it might have been just before that, and I think I knew that I was going to be writing something for Liber and Fluxus, but I had not actually started on it yet. And Will McCardell suggested I talk to Owen about the Genius Guide to Bravery Feats, which was just Bravery Feats at that point in time. It became a Genius Guide after Rogue Genius picked it up. And so this, was about 6 years ago. This was before the Weapon Master's Handbook and the Armor Master's Handbook, and before Pathfinder Unchained, and before Ultimate Intrigue, and all of these other things that added a bunch of stuff to the fighter and kind of reshaped what it was as a class. And I was like, it would be really cool if there was just a line of feats that were designed for the fighter that all keyed off bravery, and just let the fighter do cool things with mechanisms that were built and based off of scaling with the fighter's bravery class feature. And so I wrote that, and I pitched it to Owen, and Owen said, this is good stuff, and published it for me. And it's a gold bestseller. Gold is better than Electrum on DriveThruRPG, right? They have such a wide array of metal.
I'm pretty sure because Electrum is a silver gold alloy.
So
Owen agrees.
So that then is, I think, also the product that has sold the most copies, at least on DriveThruRPG as well, because it's got the highest metal rating, I think, of any of the products that I've worked on as well. There you go.
Platinum is the highest, apparently.
What's that?
Platinum is the only one that's higher than gold, Owen said. And Owen would know what are good metals to have on DriveThruRPG.
Yeah, so it was I think it's like 5 pages long and like somewhere between 12 and 20 feats. And I even kind of backdoor supported that when I wrote the Battlelord for Greg at Amora Games, in that I gave the Battlelord bravery specifically so that when I was playing my Battlelord, I could get bravery feats from that book.
I see what you did there.
Owen says there's now an adamantium that's above platinum, which is above gold.
They just keep raising the bar, man.
Owen says, and then Mike was in such demand after that I couldn't get him booked again.
I did do more work with Owen. I have actually released another product for Owen, but that was just like last year. So there was about a 5-year and some change gap in between things that I wrote for him.
And Alex Aguda said he got you for one whole monster.
Oh yeah, I just agreed very recently me to do a monster for Alex, but I didn't want to be the one to say that, since it is. No, I don't know that I had not known whether or not he had officially announced it yet.
Well,
So,
he is now officially announced that there is a monster that he got you for. But now, what
That's
it is...
just it. Everybody Games is doing something that includes a monster.
Yeah, it includes at least one monster, I might say. And Alex says, it's my company, I can announce whatever I want.
Yeah, Starfinder, and it is something where Alex asked me if I would like to do a monster, and I asked him if he wanted a pitch or if he had something he wanted me to do. And he said, if you don't have anything to pitch, I have something you want to do. And then I pitched something really weird and scary to him that he was like, yes, that. So that's what that's going to be. And he
Alex says it's in the Events Occult Guide, and he's asking you to tell the audience what Alex's pitch to you would have been if it wasn't yours. Not the pitch that you gave to him, but the pitch he gave to you.
Oh, gosh.
And he said it in all caps, too, so if you don't remember it, I'm sure he's going to be very disappointed.
Oh, no, don't give him the pressure like that. But yeah, Events Occult Guide. If you all remember the project that we linked that was Kickstarted recently, then that is indeed that project.
He also put XD now. You can see Mike's face as he looks through his correspondences with Alex. Like, what was the thing that Alex pitched?
Where is it? Because now I remember. Okay, in all defense, Alex and I talk fairly frequently about a lot of things, and we are both creative people who do a lot of third-party work. So when you ask me what weird monster did you talk to this creative person about recently? There were a lot. Okay.
So he said the pitch was, do you like weird stuff in your tabletop RPGs? That was the pitch, and he said that was the pitch in all caps. That was his only pitch to you.
That's what it was. Yes. Do you like weird stuff in your RPGs? And my response to Alex after he asked that was, I would have thought we've known each other long enough for you to know the answer to that is obviously yes.
See, it just didn't even register, Alex.
It was just so normal of a thing that you would say to Mike is do you like weird stuff? Well, yeah.
Yes. Did we mention earlier that I'm playing a clown cleric and a Leshy luchador in my 2 office games?
I think we mentioned that. So, Linda, did you have one more thing that you wanted to say, or did we cover that?
That was the main thing that I wanted to talk about was you getting into the 2 things is I wanted to, because I know we talked about work a lot. I wanted to make sure you had at least some chance to talk about what you like to do outside of work.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And
now we got it. What was it? Landgreaser?
Landgreaser, yes, is if you like tactical RPGs, it's on the Switch. These are really old classics, but they've got cool remastered versions and decent kind of rocky but also classic RPG soundtracks. And I do need to just caveat that with the fact that I really love strategy RPGs. Fire Emblem and Shining Force are some of my all-time favorite games. Langrisser is part of that family, and
that's spelled
so if you
Langrisser. I put it out.
Yes, and so if you also happen to tile-based strategy RPGs and stuff, then I've been playing that on the Switch. I've been greatly enjoying it, and I think I'm binged most of the way through Langrisser 1.
Oh, don't worry. Mark already has the page for
I had it up in case I wanted to link it to people.
I would not be surprised if that game is in our future as well.
I don't know. We'll see.
We have so many games.
We play a lot. I play a lot of tactical RPGs. Did you play Fire Emblem 3 Houses as well?
I did.
All the fishing constantly.
I did a lot of fishing, yes.
Well, there's fishing and there's also having lunch with your students.
Yeah, it's I'm going to be a good professor, right? So how can I do that? Is it from teaching my students or taking seminars with other professors who will teach me teaching skills? 0. That will not raise your professor ranking at all. Is it eating lunch multiple times with your students over and over again? That gives a pretty good amount. Sending your students to fight for your amusement in a battle arena, which you've already won the prize for, and you're just doing it over and over again, that gives the most for your time. That spends a time increment.
RPG
and then fishing
logic.
by yourself in the middle of the lake doesn't even take time, so that actually gives the most as long as you can get enough lures.
I feel like that had to be someone who was a professor or has some kind of education background who did that intentionally. I really believe that, and if I'm wrong, I don't want to be told.
No, I think that makes sense.
It was just
They don't
bitter.
elaborate in joke,
They were
yeah.
just bitter. They were just like, yeah, there we go. All of your colleagues either just want to get drunk all of the time or are obsessed with researching you and putting you into weird experiments.
Oh, dear.
Let's see. Alex is saying he needs to show Mark a webcomic on the Webtoons app called The Gamer. Season 1 is literally that looks like the main character figuring out how to game reality. Yeah, I think you would like that.
That does sound interesting.
Hey, you know what? It's not my fault that I wanted to figure out how to get the most professor points for my time, because they give you more time when you get the professor points, so it's a self-reinforcing cycle. One of my students died because of the fact that I didn't get enough professor points soon enough, or relationship with her before some other character died, and they wouldn't let me talk to her ever again, and then I had to kill her in a battle, so people's lives are at stake. I should have fished more.
People's lives are at stake based on your fishing, yes. Oh, video game logic.
I had the exact same feeling when I played the game. Yes. I was like, they're dead now, and it's because I didn't spend enough time out fishing. This could have all been... This is like a very important lesson about making sure you take time for yourself to engage in a hobby.
There you go.
Such as playing games. For example.
I mean, as long as you're fishing one way or another, I think that's really
do you like fishing in real life?
I used to very much. I have not been fishing in a very long time, however. Morgan and I were actually just talking the other day about the fact that I'm not 100% sure if I remember how to properly clean a fish or not. So it's been about that long since the last time I went fishing.
Oh no.
But I would like to go again. Hopefully I'll get a chance to go again sometime in the night.
Alright, so Owen has now made some proposals for you, Mike. And I'm going to hold him to these, that he's going to publish these if you agree to any of them on this show. So first, the Sumo Lock. A spellcasting sumo wrestler that is like a warlock sumo combined. The second is Stabracadabra, which is a spellcasting rune sword weapon.
You are the rune sword.
You are the
Your
sword.
Companion is the guy carrying you.
And then PF2 King Swarm. Your character is a pile of vermin. And Starfinder Mama Othmorph.
Mammothomorph.
No, Mama Othmorph. Like Mama and then Oth. And you could turn into a giant woolly mammoth. Oh wait, so I think that the Mammoth Morph is PF1 because I think that the system is afterwards. So Sumo Wrestler is PF2, the Sabracadabra is PF2, King Swarm is Starfinder actually, and Mammoth Morph is PF1. And then he said in all caps, if he writes, I will publish. He
can write them for any system, to be honest.
In fact, if you write them for all three, then it can fit in with Owen's 52 and 52.
T for Goblin says that they will play if you write those.
There you go.
I am so in a very amusing moment here. I'm sitting here wondering if something I already did is too similar to the Sumo Lock to do it again.
Yeah, I was about to ask, are you violating any NDAs to talk about the Sumo Lock? Because it seems so close to something you would write. I would have been surprised if you didn't have one.
T for Goblins wants a Stabracadabra.
Yeah, no, I really like Stabracadabra.
Owen points out we need a 5e adaptation if it's really going to be in the 52 for 52 format. Because it's for 4 systems.
Yeah, I can do 5e. It would not be the first 5e thing I have worked on, though I currently don't have any published 5e credits. But I can do 5e.
All right.
It's very interesting. It's a different... the more systems I design for, the more I'm both like, wow, it's really cool how this system was designed to do this thing very well, and then also the more my brain starts like spinning on how much of this do I do as this system's version of this thing, and how much of it is this system's version of this thing something that works fundamentally differently than that system
Owen
version
said in
of.
all caps except for the letter E. Write 5E for me.
And
With
then,
an exclamation mark.
And then Dustin said 52 for 52 for 52. Right, 48 additional systems.
Right for
Owen
52
is
different
magic,
systems.
but not that magic.
Yeah, that's so much.
That's gonna kill the goose that laid the golden egg to write all 52 of them in 52 systems.
Yeah. Be nice to Owen, people.
There's got to be 52 systems out there.
There are, but you don't want to write it for all 52 of them, Mike. I promise.
Yeah, I have recently discovered that I think I am starting to hit my cap on the number of active systems I can actually continue to participate in between Pathfinder First Edition, Pathfinder Second Edition, Fifth Edition, Starfinder, and then all of the various permutations of Cypher system. My deep 20 plate is quite full at this moment in time, though that has not stopped me from collecting all kinds of board games and card games and other ways.
Of course.
So.
Nice.
We froze Owen with the 52 systems.
Oh dear.
I cast summon blanket and hot chocolate.
I do need to write some more stuff for Owen, though. It is always a pleasure to work with Owen, and now that he is no longer in the office with us, I do need to find more opportunities to collaborate with him. So maybe I'll be doing Stabracadabra sometime soon. We'll have to see.
Well, there you go.
There
you heard the fact that there is a possibility that might happen right here, folks.
Could happen. Your character's a rune sword, and your companion is just that dude with the sword. Named Stabracadabra. Could happen.
And on that note, it looks like we didn't get any other specific questions.
Yeah, nobody else
here.
had any questions up until now.
I think we can go ahead and say goodbye to YouTube here.
All right. Bye, YouTube. See you next time.
Bye.
Boob.
All right, Twitch.